As fans of mixed martial arts, a large part of what drives interest in this sport comes in the form of the narratives that we latch onto in the lead up to watching some of the game's most recognizable faces competing. Too much hype can drown out our sense of reality, just like a shortage of it can dampen our appreciation for what's actually happening. And though MMA is an entertainment product at its core, that doesn't mean its sporting aspects should be ignored, or in this case, not fully celebrated. That doesn't apply to all of these fighters here, but for this video, I wanted to draw attention to 5 fighters that, for one reason or another, I believe to be sorely misunderstood or underrated by the masses. So let's get into it. Michael Chiesa. Look, it might not be the most exhilarating style to watch for the majority of you, but to say that Michael Chiesa is the real deal at 170 pounds would be putting it lightly. Though originally an oversized lightweight who could never truly find form or consistency at the highest levels, I do truly believe that Chiesa is showing the potential to give any of the top 5 a real test at this point in time. And though I don't back anyone to take out Kamaru Usman anytime soon, Chiesa is still generally ignored by fans, who associate him mainly with his forced trash talk at that press conference with Kevin Lee a few years back. And while yeah, he's not exactly setting the world on fire with his fighting style, I think on this recent run, Chiesa's honesty with himself and his approach to prioritizing his strengths, that heavy control-based approach on the mat, if it becomes more refined, could well see him continue to blossom into a real elite talent within this welterweight title picture. I thought his performance against Neil Magny in particular was excellent, but when you consider that he also got past Rafael dos Anjos on this run, it is clear that Michael Chiesa is just begging for a big name to test his newfound comfort at 170 against. Derrick Brunson. To me, there's always been something disrespectful about the label of gatekeeper, and yet when it comes to Derrick Brunson, for years that was the purpose he served within the UFC's middleweight ranks. Though never too far from a good run of form, Brunson's reputation as a fast starter with no more than 1 round in the tank did lead him to success and trouble in equal measure. But now with a more refined, more wrestle-heavy approach, and with his wealth of experience in the back pocket, I do think that Brunson deserves to be taken seriously as someone who could outperform our expectations. I mean look, not everyone can be champion, but with a matchup against Darren Till ahead and huge victories over highly touted prospects like Edmund Shabazian and Kevin Holland behind him, I do believe that there's a chance that Brunson's stock is about to hit unheard of highs. I do love me some Darren Till, I won't lie, but Brunson has some very interesting X factors that could well see him surprise a lot of us. Germaine De Randamie. I know. A lot of people hate Germaine De Randamie because she clearly ducked Cyborg, and because on that awful UFC 208 card she clearly cheated against Holly Holm, blah blah blah, I know. I understand the hesitation to give her any form of props, but what I see is a fighter who has gone 7-2 in the UFC, losing only to Amanda Nunes on 2 occasions. I see an elite striker who had better moments against Nunes in their rematch than most fighters who have ever fought the Lioness. And despite her background as a kickboxer, I see a fighter who just doubled down on her #1 ranked contender position with a submission victory over Juliana Pena. I think GDR has a lot to do to force another fight with Nunes, but to underestimate her clear talents would be foolish. She's a handful for anyone at bantamweight right now, and one of the finest strikers in women's MMA history. And though at 37 she is certainly at the tail end of her career, I think already, based on her successes, she definitely deserves a greater level of credit competitively, even if, again, she cheated and ducked Cyborg. But hey, nobody's perfect. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we're fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. I feel like every time I consider changing this call to arms, I see all the comments and I'm like, okay, well maybe I should just leave it as it is. Maybe we should print t-shirts, I don't know. Either way, we're on our way to 100k, so let's just get on with the video. Glover Teixeira. How on earth is Glover Teixeira still at the top of his game? He entered the UFC 9 years ago, moving into the top contender spot with 5 wins and 4 finishes before losing to John Jones. And that fight largely didn't go his way, something that was followed by a string of patchy form, highlighted by memorable knockout losses to Alexander Gustafsson, and one particularly brutal 13-second KO at the hands of Anthony Rumble Johnson. But then, as he knocked on the door of 40 years old, 2 years ago in 2019, Glover began an identical run of form, again winning 5 and finishing 4 to recapture the division's top contender spot. Indeed, his style has changed, but with the passing of time and the emergence of new modern talents, Teixeira's veteran savvy has seen him pull off a feat that is just unheard of for the most part. Can he beat the champion Blachowicz? Who knows? But already this man has left quite a few of us in shock with this resurgent run of form. Alexander Volkanovski. And finally, yes, I understand that Alexander Volkanovski is UFC champion. And yes, I also understand that he is the odd one out among these less visible entries. But while Volkanovski is indeed the holder of the featherweight title, I do not believe for one second that most people actually understand just how good this guy is. Wins over Chad Mendes, over Jose Aldo, who is still obviously an absolute killer, albeit at 135 pounds, and his pair of victories over Max Holloway. The subtle brilliance of what this guy does, his feinting, his very nuanced movement, his mind games, the overall modernity of his approach. I have maintained since my post-fight night rewatches that he bet Max Holloway on both outings, though the second one was certainly razor close. But take one look at the Holloway who bet Calvin Kattar, how informed this man clearly is, and take a moment to understand what it must take to even be competitive against that, even if you thought he lost. That is Alexander Volkanovski. I truly do believe he's one of the best fighters of his era and one of the most underrated fighters in the sport. I also have a few honorable mentions to throw out for the always electric Lando Venata, who looks better than ever at featherweight, the resurgent Carla Esparza, the overall career of Joseph Benavidez, as he lived in the shadow of Demetrius Johnson, Rafael dos Anjos, a man who has barely had a break in 7 years. No, seriously, look at his record. And if I may be so bold, the UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, a man who shouldn't be judged on the back of one poor showing and some rather odd decision making in what was probably a very weird and confusing time. But who do you think are the most underrated fighters in the sport today? And do you take issue with any of my selections for this video? Do let us know in the comment section below. We always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.